This is the Summer of Freedom Cultural Series, an audio journey through historically significant Black landmarks in Philadelphia, hosted and executive produced by Solomon Jones. In this episode, we explore the legacy of Crystal Bird Fauset, the first Black woman elected to state legislature in the United States, a trailblazer, a Philadelphian, and a figure too often left out in the history books. Her story reminds us why it's so important to uplift the voices of those who've paved the way.
Black women are politically powerful. From First Lady Michelle Obama.
Something wonderfully magical is in the air, isn't it? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. It's the contagious power of hope.
To Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker.
If we work together and not as adversaries, and not us versus them, not business, versus government, versus community. We need everyone to bring it together. I'm Philly born, I'm Philly bred, and I'll be a Philadelphian till I'm dead. I love you, Philly. We're gonna do this together.
To Vice President Kamala Harris.
And ours is about a fight for democracy and your right to be heard. That is what is on the line in this election. Look, everybody has a right to be heard, but right now I am speaking.
Sisters are at every level of leadership. Pennsylvania House Speaker Joanna McClinton, Council Majority Leader Catherine Gilmore Richardson, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and so many more. But that progress began with West Philly trailblazer named Crystal Bird Fauset, the first Black woman to be elected to a state legislature in America. Samuel Lewis Jr., founder of the Crystal Bird Fauset Institute for Civic Engagement, reads from the historical marker at 5403 Vine Street, where she lived.
Crystal Bird Fauset, the first Black woman elected to a state legislature in the United States. Fauset, who lived here, won her seat in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in 1938. She later served as a Civil Defense Race Relations Advisor under Franklin D. Roosevelt. And this was put up in 1991 by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission at the urging of Charles Blockson of Temple University's collection.
Did she buy this house new?
No. Her sister owned the house. Birdie O. Bird was her name, Birdie Odessa Bird. She was a school teacher.
So what was this neighborhood like? What would it have been like back then when Crystal Bird Fauset lived here?
It was 66% white. And her campaigning process was to make phone calls in the morning. So she would call, talk about her programs and her, hopes and dreams of being elected. And she won.
But there was much more to it than that. For years, Crystal Bird Fauset had built a local and national network by leading in her community and beyond. State Representative Donna Bullock talked about it in a 2021 award ceremony named for Fauset.
She was a leader in her hometown of Philadelphia, where she led on race and gender issues. In 1925, she became involved in the Quakers Association. She wanted to work in this space because she had an interest in having people of other racial groups understand the humaneness of the Negro wherever it is found.
She earned a Bachelor's of Science from Columbia University Teachers College in 1931. That same year, she married Arthur Fauset, an anthropologist from a prominent Black family. The Bird family was prominent as well. Her great-niece Belinda Patrick picks up the story from there.
I had always known that some of my relatives had founded a college. I just did never know who. And then I got a call from one of the administrators, and she was very sweet. She said they'd been looking for, some relatives of Portia and Benjamin Bird, and they found me. Found out that they left Virginia, and they went and they founded the college, and they started it with like 9. I think they started out with 9 students, and then over the years, it became University of Eastern Shore, University of Maryland had come in, and they partnership with them, and that's why Eastern Shore is now part of the University of Maryland.
Much like her parents, Crystal Bird Fauset was an educator and an innovator, and she used it to lead her people. Here's State Representative Donna Bullock.
Crystal Bird Fauset founded the Colored Women's Activities Club for the Democratic National Committee in 1932 and helped register Black women to vote. She became an influential figure in the Roosevelt administration when he appointed her director of the Women in Professional Project in the Works Progress Administration in Philadelphia. She also served on the Federal Advisory Board for Public Housing. She continued her work on race relations in Philadelphia, where she worked on the Joint Committee on Race Relations of the Arch and Race Streets Quaker Group, where she helped establish the famous Swarthmore College Institute of Race Relations, which documented employment and housing discrimination against Pennsylvania's Black residents.
Along the way, she became close with Eleanor Roosevelt and played a role in the 1936 Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia.
Mr. Chairman, my friends of Philadelphia, this is almost like a convention.
And then when she won the election, doing the unthinkable, it all brought us back to this house. Here's Fauset's great niece, Belinda Patrick.
Her and her sister moved into the house that's now standing in Philadelphia, which I've had a chance to visit a couple times, and I've even spent the night there, which was kind of amazing because it was just me and the house and the memories, and I guess she was there in spirit. But that was really a pivotal moment I will always cherish.
What was it like spending the night at the house?
Well, it was really kind of amazing because I wasn't scared. You would think I would be scared because it's a big house, and I had to sleep like up on the 3rd floor. So, but I wasn't scared. But I was really curious. I just walked around through all the rooms and kind of pictures. She bathed in here and she slept in here, and this is where she cooked, and this is where she might sit and read, and I sat at her dining room table where I assume that's where she would write, and in her parlor, and I just got to know the whole house, and by doing that, and I'm glad I was by myself because there was no interruption, so I could just wander and take my time and just be nosy, and I looked in drawers and closets, and Sam and them had cleaned out most of this stuff, but it was amazing. Like I said, it's something I will never ever forget.
Could you feel her presence in the house?
I did, and I didn't want to say that because people think I don't want people to think I'm crazy, but I think that's one of the reasons why I wasn't afraid, because I felt that she was there and she would protect me, because she was happy that I was there, that finally one of her relatives, have come to visit, and that made me feel good. That really did. That made me feel special. I'm sorry, but I was, like I said, I'll never forget it, and I did feel her presence.
Things have changed in the 7 or 8 years since Belinda's visit. The house next door caught on fire and was demolished by the city. The fire left water damage and dozens of broken windows, according to Samuel Lewis. He's managed to fix some of it, but permits and money delays have stood in the way. And now here we are at 54th and Vine, standing on the outside looking in. So let's go inside. The house is here.
I have a picture of her standing on these steps on election day.
Can still smell the smoke.
Yeah. So it's not a fancy house. You can see the woodworks, and it's nothing fancy, but it's solid. And I was trying to restore, make it into a livable space.
Like, what's this right here?
Well, the large one on the wall there is a copy of her certificate that she received when she was, sworn into office. And the original copy of that is down at Howard University. So I was surprised. I went down there, and of all the things, that was there. So the framing is picture frames. Mostly when I did the research is newspaper articles, little bits of this and that, pictures. So I thought it's easier to kind of tell the story in smaller doses, in these two rooms. Each wall is lined with the frames that were up there, but now between the fire and the water damage, they kind of fell off the wall.
How did you get interested in Crystal Bird Fauset?
Well, I don't call myself a real estate investor, but I saw this, got an email about the place, and it had the historic marker. And I said, wow, what a chance to have a house historic marker, or, kind of do something with it. So all I thought I knew was the being elected and serving on FDR's kitchen cabinet, they called it back then. But I found newspaper articles dating back to 1910, where she was a musician and she would play concert at Vassar and all over the Boston area. And I kept going and looking and finding different things. And she had quite a career of public service.
And now in West Philly, State Representative Morgan Cephas can look back on Crystal Bird Fauset, the woman who paved the way for her.
It's a tremendous honor to, come after a trailblazer like her and to, continue the work for Black people. You constantly talk about what is the Black agenda. You are literally carving out a Black agenda for, this generation and, for us in this moment. But she was one of the originators where, she stepped in a space where, not just being the first Black woman in the country, but imagine going into the General Assembly and being the first and being the only, but also being unapologetically about moving a Black agenda for Black people in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm always honored to, look back on, those that came before me. And I'm always asking the question, well, what are you doing to continue their legacy, but also move the needle, particularly in this moment for our Black community? So I'm deeply honored, huge shoes to fill. But again, when I look at the state of our country, the state of our communities in this moment, and how it gets a bit chaotic and sometimes overwhelming, I always, tend to think back of, well, what could have been like for her in 1938? And if she was bold in that moment, we can be bold right now.
That's what I think about.
Mm-hmm.
The pushback she must have gotten, and I look at some of the response to Black female leadership even now.
Yeah.
Do you draw on that when you face some of that pushback as a Black woman in leadership?
Oh, absolutely. I know in this moment, top of mind is the DC 33, strike that we just went through. And my mother, she started her career in the city as a DC 33 worker and ended her career in DC 47. She was actually on the picket line in 1986. I was like 2 years old in a stroller because she couldn't afford childcare. But she also retired at $65,000, and that was 10 years ago. So it was a staunch reminder, in this moment that, these are two unions that have been underpaid for decades. And it also is a reminder, and Reverend Waller talked about this in a sermon, that, as the first Black woman mayor and having the pressure to, reverse decades of, being underpaid as a union is extremely difficult, particularly fiscally. And, the unique backlash that she got in this moment was very, disheartening and, troublesome. Particularly in this moment as a Black female elected and, elected officials in general, given, the harassment, the violence that's happening against us. It's a very difficult moment in this time. But I think also as a Black woman, we don't have the luxury to not continue to move the needle, because Black women, we don't just represent ourselves, we represent our families, we represent our communities. And we have a duty to, just continue, but also to ensure that, we're investing in people and actually having results in our work. And it goes back to Crystal Bird Fauset that, put an agenda, an economic agenda, an education agenda, an unapologetic agenda for, Black families and Black communities to, move along the economic spectrum.
So we're dealing with some things on a national level, and I'm sure Crystal Bird Fauset would have had to deal with too. In 1938, when she was elected, really feels like 1938 sometimes now.
Like, why are we back here?
Right?
Why are we back? Why are we fighting the same fights? We're fighting the same fights. I mean, whether that be economic parity, equality. You constantly talk about on your show the issue of DEI, civil rights. Why are we back at, birth citizen rights? Why are we back at that conversation? And it just reinforces that we have to double down in this moment to really move an agenda that really impacts our people. And it really makes me think of this quote from Congressman John Lewis. I'm going to read it because it is so powerful. And it's like, do not get lost in a sea of despair, right? Because that's kind of like where we are. But be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime.
The achievements, she was a force of nature. And she achieved so much, especially in those days, when, Black women didn't do all that back. They were just getting noticed, and she stood above them all. And, she fought barriers, and she made, friends with kings and queens and presidents and this was, back in the days of Jim Crow, and in order to achieve all that, at that time, the world should know about that. Like I said, other than this small group of people, she should be in every history book there is. That's how I feel about my great aunt.
Crystal Bird Fauset, trailblazer, leader, and a daughter of West Philly. We must know more about her in order to know ourselves. I'm Solomon Jones for WURD.
You've been listening to the Summer of Freedom Cultural Series, produced and hosted by Solomon Jones. This special series is brought to you by Comcast and Keystone First and is presented in partnership with the Preservation Alliance of Greater Philadelphia and the Society of the Preservation of Philadelphia African American Assets.